Hey guys, it's Chase, and today we are going to do a Dualies tier list for Splatoon 2. If you guys didn't know, I do specialize in Dualies. If you've seen any videos on my channel, you could probably figure that out. So yeah, we're just gonna have a casual chat about this tier list that is completely my opinion. I want to make that very clear. Do not take this as fact. Do not think like, oh, Chase said K dualies are D, so you should never use them. Like, no, don't think that. This is just my personal opinion. But it is also taking some info that I got from some other competitive players as well. So just keep that in mind. So like, it is just my opinion, but my opinion may partially be influenced by things that other competitive players have said. So I know that's weird, but just stick with me, okay? One other thing before we get started is that in the description, I have included timestamps for each of the tiers. So if you don't care what I have to say about the D tier weapons, you could just click on the timestamp to skip to what you want to hear. All right, let's get started. So, starting off with the D tier, we're going to go bottom to top here. Just want to let you know, for the D tier, you could kind of order these however you want. Like, these aren't really in any specific order. For the other tiers, they are. But for this tier, this could kind of go either way. But starters, we have the K Dualies, which I personally think is currently the worst dually in the game, as version 5.3.1 or whatever version we're on. All right, so the Splat Dualies, they're an interesting weapon. They used to be really, really good in Splatoon 2. They used to be meta, but since then they've received a variety of nerfs, as well as certain other weapons becoming more popular, which are good against Splat Dualies. So this is actually kind of a problem with a variety of dualies, not just the splat dualies. However, I think the splat dualies suffer the hardest. But there's just a lot of weapons right now that are very popular that utilize main power up as damage up. So, for example, Kensa Splattershot Pro, Custom Dualie Squelchers, Bamboozler, like those three weapons all utilize main power up to get like increased damage. And if you guys didn't know, if you run enough MPU on those weapons, you can kill people before the, I don't know, like the usual amount of shots that's required. So like, Kenta Splatter Shot Pro, that would normally be a 3-shot kill, but if you run enough MPU, sometimes you will kill people in 2 shots. Now, I say sometimes, but when you're using dualies, that sometimes becomes about 99% of the time. The reason for that is because while dualies roll, they're always likely to take damage because you're most likely going to be touching enemy ink when you roll, and then you just need a tiny bit of damage taken in order to be 2-shot or 1-shot or whatever by those weapons that I just described. Like the MPU weapons. Dualies have a very rough time against those long range weapons that utilize main power up, and splat dualies I think are the worst against those MPU weapons. They don't have a lot of range. Their roll time is pretty slow, so even while you're rolling, if you're playing against someone who can aim like decently, they can kind of just shoot you while you're rolling because the roll animation is so slow on the splat dualies that it's pretty easy to just like shoot them mid roll. And then also their ink consumption isn't even that good, and then that ink consumption is a big part of the reason why I think Kensa splat dualies in specific are really bad. It's because you see Kensa splat dualies have suction bomb and baller as their kit. So going first off, suction bomb, it takes up way too much ink for the weapon. So when you throw a suction bomb, you pretty much always have to swim and get some ink back before you go into anything. And then you really want to be able to throw a bomb and go in right after that. Like, that's the most optimal thing. And yeah, you can't really do that with the Kensa Splat Dualies. So, and then also, let's talk about its special, which is Baller. As of right now, in the current game state, Baller isn't that good either. It's mainly used now to just get out of bad situations. It's never really used offensively. And then the fact that Baller is used like that now doesn't really mesh well with the Splat Dualies, which is supposed to be like an aggro weapon that gets in people's faces. But both its sub and special weapons don't really work with it too well. Now, if either the Splat Dualies got an ink consumption buff or Baller got a buff, I would put it higher on this list. But as of right now, I do think that's the worst dually. So next up on the list, we have the clear Dapple Dualies. So I see a lot of people debate whether Dapple Dualies or Splat Dualies are the worst dualies in the game right now. And it could be either, but personally, I think that Dapple Dualies have a few more like niche benefits than Splat Dualies do. I mean, I love Dapple Dualies. Like, if you watch my videos, you see I use Dapple Dualies like pretty often, but I'm not going to lie to you guys and say that they're a good weapon because they're not. I just enjoy using them. But like every weapon on this tier list is usable. Just because it's in D tier doesn't mean you can't use it, but it's just harder to use. But yeah, so Dapples have really short range, which holds it back a lot. And then the clear Dapple in specific, they have Splashdown, which, if you don't know, is debatably the worst special in the game right now, just because it's so easy to cancel it. So yeah, that is not looking very good for the clear Dapples. However, its one saving grace is that it has the Torpedo. The Torpedo, you can combo that right after a splashdown. So you splash down, then immediately right after you roll the Torpedo on the floor. It gets some pretty nice kills sometimes, but again, it has splashdown, so that's mainly what holds it back. The other two kits for the other Dapples are a little better. So we'll get to those. Oh, but I do want to say, for clear Dapples, if you just play a lot of like solo, like if you play a lot of X rank, I do think clear Dapples are the best of the three for solo. But if you're playing like competitive, which is mainly what this list is for, but I just wanted to throw that in there. But yeah, if you're playing like competitive with an actual team, Clapples are probably the worst one. So yeah, so I would avoid them yeah, if that's the case. Next up, we have the vanilla Dualies. So Dualies as a whole, just talking about in general, like all three of them, it's a pretty good weapon. Like the main weapon itself is good. Is what I meant to say. It's not as good as the Dualie Squelchers, but it's probably the second best Dualie, I would say. However, now going more specific, the vanilla Dualies, or the Belugas, as I hear some people call them, the blue ones. These ones aren't very good, and that's mainly for one specific thing, which is that they have Ink Mine, like the Inkjet on it. As a special inkjet, it's not bad. Like if it had anything else besides ink mine, it would probably be better. But the ink mine has no synergy with the main weapon at all, and it just ends up in awkward placements of ink mines, and then you have no bomb or nothing to help you. So yeah, I think that the Belugas are the worst one of the three. All right, and the last weapon in D tier is the light Tetra Dualies. So it's kind of ironic because like the next video that I'm releasing after this one is a video about how light Tetras aren't bad. But right now I'm going to tell you light Tetras are bad. And I know that's really crazy to say because the other kit has Splashdown. And you're like, Chase, didn't you just say Splashdown is like the worst special in the game? Yes, but Auto Bomb Rush is not much better, and this weapon also has Sprinkler, which is just all these weapons in the bottom tier have like really weird synergy issues. Sprinkler is a defensive sub weapon that paints and provides no offensive pressure at all, and also it's just not a good sub in general right now. And Tetra Dualies are a weapon that need to get in people's faces. So again, like what is the synergy there? So its sub is bad, and Auto Bomb Rush is probably the worst bomb rush of all of them. Like it can do stuff. I'm not saying Auto Bomb Rush can't do anything. Like it's good for like throwing at the tower and tower control when like they're pushing. You could get them off the tower. But then again, you could kind of say that for any other bomb rush too. So yeah, like the Auto Bomb Rush is also terrible. So it has a bad sub and a bad special. Whereas we're jumping a little ahead here, but the Dark Tetra Dualies, they have a bad special, but their sub is decent. But we'll get to that. But yeah, so light Tetras, not very good. But you should still watch my video that's coming up soon about how they are good. Okay, moving on to C tier. So at the bottom of C tier, we have the Dapple Dualies Nouveau. So different than the clear Dapple Dualies Nouveau actually has a pretty decent special, as in Inkstorm. I mean, you could say it has also weird synergy issues with the main weapon, but hey, Inkstorm is nice on anything because it gets paint. It helps out your team, and it also has Toxic Mist, which Toxic Mist is a pretty mediocre sub, but it has its uses in certain areas. And what I was about to say is that I think Dapple Dualies Nouveau is actually decent on Rainmaker specifically, just because its kit works really well with Rainmaker, because Dapples in general pop the Rainmaker really well. especially if you combine it with Object Shredder. And its kit helps with the Rainmaker a lot. Or it helps just in the mode Rainmaker, because like you could throw an Ink Storm to hold people off so they can't push, and then also you could throw a Toxic Mist to like block off certain paths on certain maps to prevent like the Rainmaker from coming. But yeah, I think its best mode is definitely Rainmaker. You can use it in zones maybe, but I think the red Dapples are better in zones, which we'll get to. But yeah, so Dapple Dualies Nouveau, not exactly great, but has its niche use in Rainmaker, which is why I put it in C tier, just because it's actually somewhat decent in one mode. And you can use it in other modes. So yeah, Dapple Dualies Nouveau, not horrible. And to finish up C tier, we have both of the other two remaining Splat Dualie kits. So again, I'm personally not really a fan of this weapon. I never liked Splat Dualies, but what makes these two higher than the other one is their kits. So the vanilla Splat Dualies have Burst Bomb and Tenta Missiles. Tenta Missiles are just solid special in general, and Burst Bomb has pretty good synergy with the main weapon. But the issue here just is that the main weapon itself is kind of bad. But yeah, it has its uses. And then End Parry Splat Dualies, this weapon used to be the best weapon in the game at one point, because Inkjet was broken back then. And Inkjet is still fine now. And Inkjet has very good synergy with the main weapon. And then Curling Bomb, it's fine. It helps you get places. I mean, it doesn't have a lot of offensive pressure because you're not really going to kill much with Curling Bomb, but it does let you move places fast. So, yeah. End parries are a viable weapon. Like, you could use them, but there are definitely better options when it comes to dualies, which we will get to right now, starting with B tier. So first up, we have the Vanilla Dapple Dualies, which personally I think is the best of the three Dapple Dualie kits for competitive. For solo, again, I said earlier, clear Dapple Dualies I think are the best, but for competitive, I think the red Dapples are the best, and here is why. Its sub weapon and special actually help your team. So it has Beacon, which is an interesting sub. Not a lot of people really know much about Beacon because there's only like 7 weapons in the game that have it or something. It's very limited. But if used in the right hands and if you're communicating with your team and you're laying good beacons, it could be very effective because you could just keep having your teammates jumping in. And yeah, I mean, yeah, you can kind of just be a little rat with red Dapple Dualies and just keep laying beacons and running around. That's what I do, at least. And it also has Suction Bomb Rush, which is the best bomb rush in the game. I mean, I guess you could say Swap Bomb Rush is equal. I would say that. But Suction Bomb Rush is a very, very good bomb rush. And just a good special in general. It's very good for taking back like the zone and Splat Zone. It's good for getting people off the tower. And it's good for popping the Rainmaker. You know, all the above. Suction Bomb Rush is just a solid special. So that's why I think the Red Dapples are the best one for competitive. Just because both its sub and special are actually like good. So even though the main weapon is lacking in a few areas, you could still make it work. So yeah, I think that red Dapples are the best in terms of the 3 Dapples. And next up in B tier, we have my main weapon, which is Dark Tetra Dualies. So Dark Tetra Dualies have Auto Bomb and Splashdown. I already gave my piece on Splashdown earlier. It's not very good. However, Auto Bomb, it's not the best sub that Tetras can have, but it's not bad. Like, Auto Bomb gets stuff done. So yeah, its kit is mediocre. However, let's just talk about the main weapon for a second. Very hard to use. I've said this before, but I think that Tetra Dualies are the hardest weapon to use in the game that shoot bullets. So yeah, like I think chargers are definitely harder to use, but those shoot like a beam, not pellets. So yeah, I think Tetras have a very high skill ceiling. They take a lot of practice to use well. And Tetra Dualies do suffer from those same exact things that I said Splat Dualies suffer from earlier in the video. You know, like they get wrecked by those long-range MPU weapons. And when you stack on top of that the fact that Tetras are really hard to use, you basically have to play like a god in order to get anything done with this weapon. Now, they can be good. If you are a god, you could do stuff. However, this weapon does die a lot, like a lot. It's called the zombie weapon for a reason. That's why so many people run quick respawn with this thing. Like, the most common gear build for Tetra Dualies is just like a mountain of quick respawn. Just because you die so much with this thing. But yeah, so the main thing that's holding back Tetras from being higher in this list is just the fact that other weapons that are really common right now are kind of good against Tetra, and Tetra suffers because of that. Believe me, I know. I speak from experience. But yeah, so that's Tetra Dualies, and that concludes B tier. So let's move on to A tier. So for A tier, I decided to put the remaining two Glugaduly kits in A tier. As I said earlier, the Glugadulies, just as a main weapon by itself, is pretty good. However, the difference between these two and the blue ones is that these two actually have pretty decent kits. So starting with the Kensa Glugadulies, these have Fizzy Bomb and Ink Armor. Pretty solid kit. The reason I like the Kensa Glugaduli so much is because you could play it two different ways. You could play like a defensive build, which just sits back and spams Fizzy Bombs and farms armor. Or you could play it as an aggro build, like you could run an MPU build, or you could run just a quick respawn build. I just like it because it's so versatile. Now, Glugas do still suffer from similar issues to some of the other dualies, but it is better because they have longer range. But the main thing that holds Gluga dualies back is just their paint, because the main weapon does not paint very well. However, the Kensa Glugadulies, its kit does help with that, just because you kind of throw Fizzy Bombs, and Fizzy Bombs paint very well. So yeah, so Kensa Glugadulies, fairly solid weapon. Definitely consider using them. However, what's even more solid is the Glugadulies Deco, which is definitely the best Glugadulies in my opinion. The reason for that is purely because of its sub-weapon, which is Splash Wall. It has amazing synergy with the Glugadulies as a main weapon. I'm sorry that I said the word synergy like 1,000 times already, but I don't know. I just like that word. But yeah, so Splash Wall works very well with Glugadulies. If you guys didn't know, the way it works is that you can actually throw a Splash Wall with the Glugadulies and then roll forward, and it will perfectly position you right behind the Splash Wall. So that's why it has such great synergy, because I don't know, it's like the Splash Wall was designed for the Glugadulies. It's crazy. However, I will say that the Glugadulies Deco is definitely less versatile in terms of ways you could play it. Because, like, you know how I just said, like, the Kensa Glugadulies, there's a variety of different styles you could play. Like, you play passive, or you could play aggro. With Gluga Deco, you kind of have to play aggro, because its kit is definitely geared more towards only aggressive play. Oh, and I need to touch on this. It also has Baller, which, you know, I said Baller isn't the best right now, but it's fine. It helps you get out of bad situations. But again, the Gluga Deco is mainly good because of the sub-weapon being Splash Wall. And that concludes A tier. So now we move into debatably the best weapon in the game. Well, the best main weapon. The vanilla Dually Squelchers. Moving into S tier now. The vanilla Dually Squelchers, definitely not as good as the custom Dually Squelchers, which we will get to, but still, we have to talk about the S tier. You can't ignore it. Dually Squelchers, like, just talking about the main weapon here, is extremely good. It does everything right, pretty much. It has good range, good paint, good mobility, and good damage if you run MPU build, which everyone does, because this is one of those weapons that I was talking about earlier, where, like, if you run MPU, you could, like, kill people in one shot less than it usually takes. So with Dually Squelchers, it's usually a 4-shot kill, or it's supposed to be a 4-shot kill, but if you run enough main power up, you could kill people in 3 shots a lot of the time. So yeah, that's why the weapon is so good, and also, like, just it's the only dually that can continuously move after it rolls. So, like, you know, with all the other dualies, after you roll, you're kind of forced to just sit in place for a little bit. Like, you're kind of just a sitting duck for a few frames, depending on which dually you're using. The timing varies. However, with the Dually Squelchers, you could just keep on moving after you roll. You ice skate after you roll. You just keep on sliding. So yeah, like, just and, like, also the fact that you could do that gives you the ability to do this thing called the jump tech, which is this cool technique where you can roll, then jump, then roll, then jump, which makes you a very hard target for other people. So yeah, just when you put all of that together, the CDS is an amazing weapon. Like, the only problem with it really is that it has, like, bad ink consumption just because they nerfed it, but even besides that, like, it doesn't matter. It's still an amazing weapon, and I'm not the only person who thinks that it's probably the best weapon in the game right now. And if you ask me, I think next patch, whenever that comes out, I'm pretty sure they're gonna nerf it again. Like it's already been nerfed, but I think they're gonna nerf it again just because it's still used a lot. But getting back on topic here, talking about the vanilla Dually Squelchers specifically, it has point sensor and Tentamissiles. Tentamissiles are a good special; they're pretty good on anything. However, point sensor is mediocre. Point sensor does not paint, and all it does is track people, which isn't really even like necessary right now. So yeah, the main thing that holds back the vanilla Dually Squelchers is the point sensor, and that is why it is a whole tier below the custom Dually Squelchers. And well, we might as well just jump into X tier now. The final weapon on the tier list and the best dually of them all is the custom Dually Squelchers. Now, this weapons kit is pretty darn good. It has Splat Bomb, which I think is probably the best bomb in the game. Second best bomb, but it works well with the weapon. And it has Ink Storm, which is also a fine special. It gets stuff done. It's not the best special it could have. Like, I know that before the Dually Squelchers were released, or the custom Dually Squelchers, they were supposed to have Ink Armor, but if they actually gave it Ink Armor, that would be horrible. So I'm kind of glad they didn't give it that. But Storm is still good on it, though. Like, Storm is still a solid special. So, yeah, just Dually Squelchers, the main weapon, is extremely good. And then when you put a good kit on top of that, that gives you the best weapon in the game. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this tier list. Thank you so much for watching, especially if you actually watched the whole thing. Like, yeah, that's impressive. I applaud you for sticking through that whole this is like almost 22 minutes. Oh boy, but this is long. But yeah, thank you for watching. Thank you for dealing with my stuttering and saying a lot and stuff like that. I'm not the best with talking, but you know, I still enjoy recording these videos, so I hope it wasn't too hard for you to listen. And again, I want to reiterate, if like your favorite dually was placed low on this tier list, I'm sorry. Like, again, I'm not saying that this is fact. I'm not saying that because I put clear dapple dualies at the bottom, like you should never use them. Like, I'm not trying to tell you what to use, but this is just my opinion on what dualies work better and which ones don't work as well. But at the end of the day, it's all just a fun video. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts in the comments. Feel free to make your own tier list in the comments. I'll read it and I'll respond. And I'm open to all opinions. But yeah, so thank you guys for watching once again, and I will see you all next time. Farewell.